I've always been better at singing than talking. Maybe the reason for that is when I was around 10, my parents got divorced and I couldn't really express my emotions, communicating with people. So I turned to singing. That was my thing. That's how I got away from the world that was, surrounding me, and it was really hard for me. And that's how I found out a very important emotion for me, which is called inspiration. Inspiration is not only the moment you're motivated or mentally stimulated to do something. It's actually an emotion itself. People nowadays tend to think that inspiration is just some smart thoughts that people post online and just use it as a Facebook show off thing. Yeah, that's my favorite. Your inspirational quotes have inspired me to unfriend you. True story. Emotions themselves, they have a way to kind of kill each other. As funny as it may sound. Happiness can kill sorrow, jealousy can kill love, love can kill, everything. And inspiration to me is the king of emotions because it's stimulated by pretty much everything. The tricky part with inspiration is the more you feed it, the more it starts to give you. There is a tricky moment though. When you start to overfeed it with emotions, you kind of get addicted. And it starts giving you less, And it's a very thin line the moment you realize that, you're falling into a bad pattern. With inspiration, it's very important to nurture it the right way, not give it too much drama, because you know what happens when you give too much drama to your thoughts. And the moment, you kind of, give it more, and it starts giving you less, something not very particularly pleasant happens, and that is called depression. It's proven that maybe 80% out of all poets, actors, musicians, scientists, pretty much every field, the greatest people, they all have, some sort of mental problem. Doesn't matter if they're just drama queens or regular, lunatics, including myself in that. It's, that's just a little, picture I made with people that suffer from depression. You can see Abraham Lincoln, Van Gogh, and even Angelina Jolie, modern day celebrities. It's a moment where it doesn't matter how successful you are, doesn't matter how much you love what you do, you just feel empty. It's a very dark place, depression. I didn't know much about it until I personally got into it. It wasn't very nice because I'm a person who fulfilled my childhood dream. I do exactly what I want to do, and I love music. That's what I've always wanted to do. And then I got into a point in my life, because of I was avoiding my problems. I wasn't nurturing my emotions. I got into a point in life where I wasn't happy. I didn't want to sing anymore. I was just, I pretty much. I pretty much hated everything that was going on. So depression is something that has been going on probably from the time of Aristotle. It's a very old thing, and it's connected very much with the arts. The way I found to get out of that place is by putting myself into the survival mode. Not by, dealing with zombies, but just trying to get out of my comfort zone and put myself into a place where I'm in the unknown. The comfort zone is a very interesting place. It's it's, you know, it's the place where you might be happy, you might feel safe, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the right place. The fear of change, the fear of the unknown, and the fear of being judged are the three most common reasons why people, you know, tend to stay unhappy or don't want to put themselves in a position where they don't know what's going on. And I see a lot of people that, you know, they have a good job, they earn some money, but they're very unhappy in their workplace. And it's sad. It's simply sad because they want to make a change, but they're afraid to. And I discovered my own way to, you know, fall in love again in what I do. And I always remember a story. When I was born in 1990, my mom got pregnant just before the communist fall. And I was born in the biggest Bulgarian recession since the 1900s. When I was very young, I remember that we didn't have any money. My grandparents, they were on the verge of being fired because they were cutting off places. Both my grandparents were doctors. And I remember my dad, they were making these small dolls which my dad was going and selling in Yugoslavia, in Belgrade. And at the time it seemed very weird, but now when I think about it, my dad is a world champion weightlifter, and the guy has Olympic medal. And I was like, how did he, how did that guy, make dolls? It's weird to me. But that's the moment where your ego doesn't matter. That's the moment you kill your ego in order to survive. The reasons probably for them was, they had twins, just newborn, that there has to be food on the table. But for me, I learned to just don't put my ego and not be ashamed of anything, that I need to do in order to make things right. So I got into a very dark place, probably last year. I really didn't want to do anything anymore in terms of music. I was sick of everything. So I bought a one-way ticket to a place. I went there, and I didn't know what was I gonna do. I was just completely, in the unknown. The first weeks, it was very, very difficult for me. And then I hit rock bottom. I spent my the last money I had to go and meet my ex-boyfriend. It was a complete disaster. So at one point I was like, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, "You idiot. Is that what you want? You want to, you want self-pity and you want to suffer, for what reason whatsoever?" And I said, "No, that's not me. I want to make a change." So I got a job. I changed, yeah, I hit everything, that's me. I changed this to this, which is not exactly, it might seem weird to you, but just see the difference. That's my life. And I went to this little box, which is very, very boring. At first I was really shocked. Working in an office is definitely not my thing. To be honest, I'm not an office person. I have a completely different, way of working, and I've never worked in an office. And I spent 2 months working in an office, and I started from zero. I started meeting new people. I started living a completely different life. I even went on a date with a guy from Tinder, which is something I've never done before. So I was like, okay, I gotta try this. I gotta try this. In exactly 2.5 months, I had experienced a lot, a completely different life. And one day I looked myself in the mirror and I said, I'm ready. I gotta go back. I gotta go back to what I do. So I went back, and I was so much ready to roll. I was happier than I've ever been in my life, really. And I shared that with a friend, and he went also. He works in a big company, very successful. He was very unhappy, and I shared my story. So he went and became a bartender in Colombia. The guy loved it and said, you know what, I'm staying here until, I want to stay here. So don't, guys, the only thing, if I've ever learned anything in life, is don't be afraid to make a change in order to reset your system. Sometimes you gotta get out of your comfort zone. You gotta go into a place that, you don't know what's going on, but just in order to fall back in love and who you are and what you do, is the only way to do it is just to realize that something different it can be worse than your own true self. That's how I fell in love again in my music. I was standing in front of the mirror and singing as if I was 12. I remember singing, with a fake microphone and just imagining that I'm singing in front of thousands of people. That's what happened again to me. And that's my only advice to you. Just go out, seize the day, and make your lives extraordinary, as I said in Dead Poets Society. Thank you very much.